Hello everyone, March W13 here with a fine dining review, and this evening we find ourselves in sunny Puerto Rico at the Condado Vanderbilt Hotel, a luxury beach resort in San Juan, and we'll be dining at 1919, which is the resort's flagship fine dining restaurant located just off the main lobby. The name 1919 is a reference to the year in which the hotel was inaugurated after having been constructed by the Vanderbilt family in their heyday in the early 20th century. The dining room here isn't much of a standout, but if you're accustomed to other fine dining establishments in the States, you'll certainly feel at home here. I started with some still water. I believe it may have been Fiji brand, but I honestly don't recall, and it's served by the waiter who keeps a bottle handy rather than placing it on the table for self-service. Although there are a couple of a la carte appetizers, dining here at the 1919 restaurant is primarily based around a fixed-price multi-course dining experience, but you have at least 6 choices for each course, so it is truly a choose-your-own-adventure type experience. So I selected my courses and opted for a premium wine pairing to be served with each course. The meal began with a glass of Veuve Clicquot, which is not only an industry-dominating French champagne, but also a mainstay of fine dining tasting menus across the world. It's almost not worth sharing my impressions of such a popularly served sparkling wine, but as always, I found it highly acidic, bready, and quite fruity, with hints of strawberry, but really dwarfed by green apple on both the bouquet and the palate, bursting with a sweet sourness almost akin to apple puckers, which is a common sour apple flavored schnapps. This is just a very bright and refreshing way to start a fine dining meal. The champagne was followed by an amuse-bouche consisting of a shot of coconut cucumber gazpacho, which tasted almost Middle Eastern, fresh and milky akin to a yogurt drink. The coconut wasn't terribly prominent, and although it was far from a poor accompaniment to the champagne, given that this is sort of a flagship fine dining restaurant in a Puerto Rican luxury resort, I honestly feel like this was a lost opportunity to sort of experiment with the local cuisine and greet newly arrived hotel guests with a little taste of the island. But it was still fine if not a little plain. As for the freshly baked bread with genuine French butter, the bread itself was far from transcendent, but interestingly sweet and herby. I received multiple portions over the course of the evening, and it was consistently soft and warm, and it grew more addictively delectable over the course of the evening. The first formal dish of the night was a lobster salad, and as a side note, the Atlantic Ocean is less than 100 feet away from the restaurant, so when it comes to seafood, expectations are quite high. And fortunately, I found this particular lobster perfectly textured, interestingly and aggressively spiced, with sublime freshness really elevated by the citrus and greens. The avocado and yogurt bind with the already creamy and acidic notes, making this somewhat simple dish a true winner. Honestly, this was straight up one of the best non-steak dishes I've ever had. It was paired with a white Spanish Rioja made from Tempranillo grapes, and the aroma was immediately reminiscent of Chardonnay. You get oak, caramel, some ash, and in the end it was very Chardonnay-like, which is actually a fairly good thing when paired with lobster. The oak played well, along with just the right amount of acidity and minerality, and a buttery on buttery combination. In the end, this may have been one of the best wine pairings I've ever had, so we're off to a pretty darn good start here. Next up was a Montrachet from the house of Joseph Juan, which is a very renowned white Burgundy label. This is a wine that probably goes for around $100 a bottle at your local liquor store or wine boutique. For me, this came across sort of like a watered-down Chardonnay. It's not great for sipping, but such is the case for most old world wines anyway. This one was extremely oaky but dry, and with milkiness derived from a secondary malolactic fermentation. However, there was something bitter and almost chemical about this Burgundy, which was paired with a ravioli of spring greens. These delicate pillows of pasta were beautifully supple, elevated by fresh pesto, but the dish was really overpowered by blue cheese. I found the wine pairing a bit questionable as it seemed to clash with the cheese, with the oak proving a bit distracting. Something just didn't work, and as a whole, although I'm a pasta lover at heart, this second course was just okay. Thankfully, I had reserved some Veuve Clicquot, which acted as an excellent palate cleanser between the first few courses. For the main event, I selected the duck breast, which was cooked to a perfect medium rare. As you can see, it was prepared quite simply. In essence, you have the fatty, somewhat chewy pieces of duck atop a soy-forward, subtly spiced bed of grains that is at first a bit off-putting, but is actually quite complimentary on second taste. Overall, this was a simple but tasty dish that left a great overall impression, and it was filling to the extreme. I'm a quick eater, especially when it comes to these generally relatively small tasting courses, but it took me quite a while to finish this one. The duck paired with a Salanques red wine from Catalonia in Spain. This is a big, spicy, dark wine made from Grenache and Carignan grapes. It smells like a big wine with a bouquet similar to some Italian varieties, but it has hints of mulling spices, cloves, cinnamon, Christmas spice tea. As a pairing with the duck, it was pretty decent. I felt the oak was quite complimentary, but it ultimately clashed a bit with the Asian flavors of the dish. The intermezzo of vanilla panna cotta with cherry and coconut lime sorbet was truly fitting of the locale. I can't say my palate was left completely cleansed, but the coconut is so clean and unadulterated. This tropical interlude was fragrant like an expensive perfume, and it was quite enjoyable, which is all that matters. The dessert pairing was kicked off with a 10-year Malmsey or Malvasia fortified wine with typical caramel notes. This one was quite thin and woody, not necessarily my favorite as a sipper, but the real question is whether it pairs well with the dessert itself, which was a pear mascarpone spice bar, and it truly lived up to the name with a spice-centric focus almost akin to the essence of vintage Old Spice cologne. The combination of room temperature cake and frozen ice cream made for a magical contrast heightened by the textural interplay with the crumbs. The pear, however, almost became lost in the fray, but at the end of the day, I felt this was an outstanding final course. The fusion with the caramel notes in the dessert wine created an almost candy bar-like experience, so the pairing of a caramel-dominant port definitely receives 2 thumbs up from me. I opted for a cappuccino to cap off the night, which was deep and dark with hints of cinnamon, just as I like it. And these mignardis came afterwards. Mignardis are always a great way to end the meal, and these were quite subtle. The standout was the chocolate. So what do I think about the 1919 restaurant? Well, interestingly, overall the Yelp reviews were less than stellar. I guess some hotel guests may not appreciate this kind of restaurant, or there may be an impression of lack of affordability. But as far as I'm concerned, although the dishes may not be quite as whimsical or imaginative as a 3 Michelin-starred establishment, this restaurant stands up to fine dining meccas like New York City and Vegas, in my opinion. And if you select the wine pairing, make sure you do the prestige pairing for a mere $20 more. You'll receive premium off the menu, by the glass wines, and personalized service from the sommelier. There are some great people here too, maybe just a couple of misses on the dishes or pairings, but from my perspective, this is truly a gem and I endorse it wholeheartedly. If you should have occasion to eat here, let me know how you share my assessment. Otherwise, until next time, happy travels and great eats. March W13 out.